Hello, folks. Welcome back to another Kapo Starky Rugby podcast. In this episode, I have the great pleasure of my guest being Angus Opperman. Angus is a South African rugby fan. His channel, Rugby Chats with Angus, will be in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. Angus, welcome along to my channel, mate. How you doing?
Hey, Cal. No, thanks a lot for having me, man. It's quite an honor to be on your channel. And no, I've been good. Just a bit tired after the long day of work. Had a gym session as well afterwards. So I'm kind of feeling it, but I'm happy to be here and happy to be talking to you about all things rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, sort of important to keep yourself fit and all that, especially the recent times we've been living in. It's been challenging for all of us to some degree, I think. But yeah, obviously with all the talk of the Lions tour coming up, I thought it'd be great to get someone on from the other side, so to speak, because from my own point of view, my main channel's just been talk about what the Lions squad is and various other things. And most of my guests I've had on lately have been more from our side of the north of the hemisphere. But no, it's nice to get someone on from a more South African perspective. So I'm just going to start off by asking, where do you think South African rugby is at right now? Of course, the Springboks not played since 2019.
Yeah, when you told me that that's going to be the question, I actually gave it a bit of thought. It's kind of like you have this race car that has been winning races for a long time, or won the main race. And then it went into limbo because of, let's say, an accident or being COVID now, or some part broke. And now you fix the car and it's driving, but you haven't actually put it in a race again. So you don't actually know what its potential is at the moment. So I think in terms of the Springboks itself, I'm not quite sure where they are. I mean, our top guys are playing now, which is great. We started off, I think it was last year in September, with the Super Rugby Unlock series. And then we had the Curry Cup, and then we had a preparation series as well, now into the Rainbow Cup. So our top guys have been playing for a while now in South Africa. Obviously, some of the guys overseas, like Pop de Klerk, and all those other guys, Akka van der Merwe, all those overseas guys, Valie Leroux, all those guys are playing now in the overseas teams for a while now. So they are getting minutes under their belt. It's just the case of, especially the guys in the Japanese leagues, where they are at the moment, from you can say a match fitness point of view internationally, because I mean, we've had the Six Nations, we had the Rugby Championship, but South Africa hasn't played a game since 2 November 2019. So we're not quite sure where they are at this current level. If they have to go into a test match, let's say next week or this coming Saturday. However, I've given it a bit of thought. And we look at what Argentina did against the All Blacks without playing any internationals. Now, SA is going to play against Georgia in 2 warm-up tests, while the provincial games are going to be on while the Lions is in South Africa. So that should be a good warm-up for them, on a physical point of view. The best opponents, I don't think so, but at least it's something higher up than your normal provincial match. And also you need to look at a case where I've seen guys, especially we can look at it in 2019, good example, the Woody Yacher, who's playing for Cell Sharks. He had an injury at the point in time, long-term, as he has now again, obviously. He had a long-term injury. He played 1 Curry Cup game, into the test squad against Australia the next week, starting, won the game. So, I mean, these guys are so conditioned to step up, when need be. So I wouldn't say I'm too worried about the form of the Springboks, of where they are going to be. And I do think that preparation against Georgia is going to help them a lot in terms of the Lions series. And we also have to remember now, and I'm probably babbling a bit now, sorry about that, but we also have to remember that the Springboks have played together before as a team. The bulk of that squad that won the World Cup, they played together before as a team. Whereas the Lions, they're all a very good side, but they come from 4 different countries. So they haven't played together as a unit as of yet. And obviously they will look to bond a bit, in those provincial games before their test matches. And the Springboks will look to do the same in their warm-up games against Georgia. So, yeah, I think they are pretty much even in that regard, if I have to answer your question in that way.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing I was going to touch on, though, with regards to South Africa, of course, as you mentioned, there's a lot of players playing in the Northern Hemisphere. There's a fair few playing in Japan right now, and you've still got, obviously a fair few still playing in South Africa and the current Rainbow Cup, like the 4-way competition you got out there. I think we can agree that's been a bit of a farce, but that's a bit of a side issue to what I'm talking about here. But no, what I was going to say is mainly with regards to a World Cup, I think is a bit different because you do get the players together for a period of time before you go actually playing the tournament. With this, though, the Lions Tour, I mean, I understand. I think it's good that South Africa have got a couple of tests against Georgia now, just to sort of get them back together. Do you think the fact it's going to be over a shorter period of time, though, might have an effect? The fact they're coming from all over the world, basically, to come together again.
Yeah, you might have a good point there, because I'm not sure how much time they have together before the test, to prepare. I know that they've been doing Zoom calls, with all the players involved, the one in the squad, or they think might make the squad. So that's one way to do it, but you still need time together. You still need time to prepare. You need time to do your drills and test them out. So I think it will have an effect, to be honest. Just for the sake of team cohesion. And I think their selection will also play a big part. And we'll get to that later on, obviously. But I do think, the Lions, they might be put together. They might be together for a bit longer, and that might just work in their favor. So I think that's where South Africans might be a little underdone. But then again, it's a team that know each other inside out, like I said, and the Lions, while there are 4 countries that actually still get to know each other on that level of playing together. So I guess, again, it's probably a bit equal in that regard, but we have to see what happens, come July.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, though, it will be pretty much the same South African team that won the Rugby World Cup, or do you think there'll be a couple of newbies we don't know, we maybe aren't talking about right now? What are your thoughts there?
I think, in terms of continuity, they probably will look to have the bulk of their squad. And I can actually name what I think a starting team might be. So from 15 till number 1, and even on the bench. If there has to be bolters, I think it might be in the lock department. There are a few injuries. We have injuries now to Archie Snyman at Munster. Again, Louis Jager is also injured. So we might have to look for reinforcements. There's Springbok Marvin Ori, who was in the wider World Cup squad, but he hasn't hit top form as of yet. There's a couple of uncapped players in J.D. Schickerling and Iron Andrews from the Sharks. So we might have to look at reinforcements. Dennis Kirsten is doing well for Exeter. Dan Dupree is at Sale Sharks. He's doing well. He can play loose forward and lock. So Reinhard Elstad, another option, can play both positions. So there's enough depth in the rock. So those are the names that might come forward, if there's a crisis. But I think for now, they are looking to get Archie Snyman back, as soon as possible for Munster. But Louis Jager is still very much an uncertainty. So we're looking at maybe Itzebeth and Mostert, being the starters of the 4 locks, and then maybe 2 other rookies or uncapped players coming through into the squad, to make up for the rest of it. But I think for the point in time, like I said, the only issue for me now is the locks, maybe. Number 10, if we get another injury there, we might be a bit thin. I do think, though, that another outsider, I wouldn't say an outsider, but 2 test Springbok and Bosch, Sharks flower.
Oh, yeah.
Not Sales Sharks South Africa.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah. So I think you might get an.
Sorry, I could understand some folk maybe having the confusion, considering half the Sales Sharks pack is both South African. So
I had to clear that up, because I think like half the Sales Sharks team is South African in any case. But Cohen Bosch has been probably one of the most consistent number 10s in the country, and it's also been growing a lot in his game. And yes, people always blast him on his defensive frailness, but you can't look at a guy's one weak point when he has 10 strong points. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's also been the conversation now recently of the old veteran Morne Steyn making a comeback, because he's been doing well with the Bulls.
Is he not like 36, 37 now?
I think he's 37 at the point in time. I'm not sure if he can actually still play at that level, to be honest, Kyle. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, he played against my team this weekend, the Stormers, and he ran the show, and he beat us basically single-handedly in some sense. 2 cross kicks and the winger scored. So he still got it, from a tactical point of view. But from a physical point of view, if he can still last, maybe 60 minutes at this level or 70 minutes, it's a question, I don't have the answer to at the moment. But maybe he can play a bit of a a Skull Brits role, being a mentor in the squad, helping a guy like Cohen, for instance, just being a better player and helping him in that regard, like Skull Brits did for Bongi Munami and Malcolm Marx at the World Cup. There might be a spot for Morningstar. So it's an interesting things to look at. We can actually mention so many players entering this Lions squad because let's face it, it's open. But I do think they will go with the bulk of the team that won the World Cup. Definitely.
Yeah, and obviously at 10, as you mentioned, Henri Pollard's back fit again. Played for Montpellier in their Challenge Cup semi-final. Came up, I think he came off the last. It was like the last 20 minutes or so he played. So do you think he's got it in him to be fit in time for that 10 shirt, considering he's not played for ages?
Yeah, I think it will be fine though. And like I mentioned earlier about the Jager, Pollard had a similar story in 2017. He was off for a long time. Springboks was struggling badly, and they brought him back into the squad. And he started training with them without playing any provincial rugby. And then he came off the bench against the All Blacks, and we lost that game by a point. So, and when he came on, the game changed. So I think Pollard has the mental strength actually to go overcome any injury and just step into a team and do what he has to do. And I've been reading some articles. He said that he knows his knees. He knows his knee is fine because he had the surgery before on that same knee, and he has done the rehab before on that same knee as well, and he knows that he's okay and good to go. So I don't think there will be issues with Pollard going forward. I just hope that he doesn't get injured again before the Lions series. Otherwise, we will be in a bit of trouble, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing, and the thing is, he's also the 10 that's sort of been there and done it. Of course, with the World Cup, that final, he just kept the points ticking over for you after your pack absolutely battered England off the pitch. Remember that game very, very well. I think we all do. But I mean, go back to a little bit about the lock combinations. The South Africans, you seem to have ability of producing a factory line of just top class locks. Like you had obviously Bakkies Botha and Victor Matfield for about 8 years, something like that, and then they get shot and they retire and then they come back for a little bit later on. But then you get in Ed and Etzebeth. It's it just seems to be a thing you have in your DNA. You just produce so absolutely massive men who are just going to be absolutely smashing every opponent they play, and as well as being obviously excellent rugby players. And Ed and Etzebeth, I think possibly the best line out forward in the world right now. So how do you do it?
I think you probably touched on it already. Genetics. It must be genetics, to be honest. But you mentioned something now, and it actually gave me a bit of a chuckle. Johnny Sexton's brother, Jerry Sexton, the lock.
Heard of him. I wouldn't say I know him, but yeah.
Yeah, so he actually played for the Southern Kings in Port Elizabeth in South Africa.
Okay.
And so the South African team imported an Irish lock. And someone said, I think it was on Twitter, someone said, doing that is basically like Fiji getting a South African winger. It doesn't make sense because they have the best in the world, some of the best quality wingers in the world. Same with South Africa with the locks. And I think it's a genetic thing, I don't know. There's guys at school level who has just growth spurts all of a sudden, and you should see our schoolboy teams. I kid you not. There are guys that you would walk in the street and think they are grown-up adults, and they will only be like 16, 17-year-olds. I mean, huge, tall, buff, athletic guys, and most of those guys, they play lock, but they can play in the back row as well. That's how agile they are. So. Yeah. It must be a genetic thing, to be honest. I think we're quite blessed with loose forwards in this country, and we've always been, in all forms and sizes, to be honest. Not just the tall, bulky, open side guys. You get the lower guys like we had Heidi Rousseau. There's Chris Kloete who's playing at Munster now. He's been touted as a Springbok a couple of years ago. We have Marco van Staden. There's a guy like I could see playing at Bath now. He's not the biggest, but he can play 6 and number 8.
Yeah.
So there's many options, that you can have in your South African team of all shapes and sizes, and yeah, just keep them coming, bro. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned that, like how with regards to loose forward, because of course Peter Steph du Toit, like famously started his career at lock. He went out to number. The thing is, obviously you over there, you have your number 7 playing the number 6, the sort of blind side flanker role, and the number 6 plays the open side flanker. So part of me, I get a wee bit confused there because I always refer to number 6 as the blind side. We always refer to 6 as the blind side and 7 as the open side. So, I'll just say it like Peter-Steph du Toit, of course, went from, a lock to blindside flanker and a bloody good blindside flanker at that. Actually with him, is he going to be fit enough? Because I know he's still nursing an injury just now, Peter-Steph du Toit.
No, I think he'll be fine, to be honest. Because he played 2 consecutive weekends, full 80 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't even the plan. It wasn't even the plan to play him the full 80, but we had a bit of disruption in terms of a red card in the first match against the Sharks. And he was forced to play the full 80. And he almost scored the winning try this past weekend as well. The guy's got a machine. I don't know what kind of coffee he drinks. I don't know how much hours or how many hours he sleeps per night, but he just seems to be, he's not even human, I swear. Like, no person can go for over a year. He's been injured for over a year. Come into a starting lineup and play 2 80-minute games, in 2 consecutive weekends. So I don't think there should be many questions around his fitness for the Lions tour. And if he can get a couple of more minutes under their belt, by July, he should be good to go.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he's, in my opinion, like he's one of the most frightening loose forwards in the world, just like, especially with the way he tackles, like, I just think anyone who's on the receiving end of a tackle from him would be feeling it for a month, yet alone into next week, because he just tackles probably as hard, if not harder, than any forward I've personally ever seen on a rugby pitch. But other players to mention, number 8, I think is you think Dwayne Vermeulen's going to be favourite there, despite he's getting on a little bit age-wise, but he still looks like he's got the ability. Would you say?
Yeah, he's good to go, to be honest. I don't and I've always said, people always refer to a guy's age, but I always say his age is one thing. It's about what can the guy produce on a Saturday, and if he can still deliver, his age shouldn't be an issue. Johnny Sexton is still playing fly half, and he's like 36 years old now. It doesn't matter. He's still steering island chip. That's just one example. Brad Thorne played until he was 38, 39 years old. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't an issue, So I think Dwayne will be the first choice, definitely. He's the most experienced. I know he organizes the pack defense as well on the field. That's his role in the pack. So he's like a bit of a captain there as well. Mm-hmm. So Dwayne definitely the first choice, number 8. I do feel, I think in terms of the backup number 8, it might be a case of a versatile guy like Marcel Coetzee, who's coming back to South Africa to play for the Bulls from Ulster. Because he can play number 6 and he can play number 8, but he's still doing his rehab now in Pretoria, as far as I know. And there's a good chance he might start playing at the end of the month for the Bulls now. So if he can get a full month of Rainbow Cup in and get some minutes under the belt, stay injury-free, most importantly, I think he might be second in line, to take over the jersey of Francois Lowe, left vacant, But also, in saying that, he could also be backup for Dwayne Vermeulen if need be. And again, I'll go back to Baltus. I mentioned Jaco Coetzee earlier, great guy. And he's now at Bath. And I feel like the Storm was letting go too early because he was at the peak of his career. But I also think, if you look at what happened back in the day, Francois Lowe was also just at the peak of his Stormers career, went to Bath, and the rest is history. So maybe, we might see a Springbok cap where Jaco Coetzee playing at number 8, if there is a bit of a vacancy there for him as well there. So, there's good options, in the loose forwards as well. But I think Dwayne Vermeulen definitely, is a starting number 8 for now.
Yeah, as I said earlier, you seem to keep producing them, back row, loose forwards, the whole pack, in fact. But you say, like, if you think you know what the number 1 to 15 is going to be, just from what I'm gauging, it seems like it's going to be similar to the one that won the World Cup. But feel free to just go on and say what you think the 1 to 15 will be.
Okay, so I'll start from the back. So I'll go Willie Leroux 15, Cheslin Colby at the right wing, Lucanio at outside center, Damien the Islander has been superb for months at inside center. Kazolo Mapimpi is playing for Red Hurricanes in Japan now, but still a lethal finisher at left wing. Andre Pollard at fly half, Paf de Klerk at scrum half, Dwayne Vermeulen number 8, Peter-Steph at number 7, and then number 6, Kira Kolisi, the captain. He hasn't been on top form, but again, he's one of those guys, when he gets into Springbok shirt, he keeps delivering. So I don't think there's an issue there in that regard. The locks might be a bit unchanged. So it might be Franco Moster at number 5 with Eben Etzebeth at number 4. And then the loose set, being Frans Malherbe and Hooker Bongi Mudambi. I'm saying Bongi for the reason that Bongi is playing at a higher level now because Malcolm Marx is playing in Japan.
Okay.
And the South African way of selecting, especially, they first look at the guys playing in the country and then they look at the guys abroad. And if there's not much difference, they'll go with the guy who's in South Africa. So Bongi at hooker and Steven, being the loose head prop, Steven Kitsoff.
Yeah.
But also you have to remember now, it's going to get interesting on the bench because Tendam Tawarira was the first choice, but he retired.
Yeah.
So now Steven Kitsoff is now automatically the first choice. And I think, I wouldn't say we lack a bit of depth, but I don't think we have the same quality in terms of another loose head prop after Steven Kitsoff. There's Oxen Chair for the Sharks. Then there is Thomas du Toit and Trevin Nakar who can play loose head and tight. If they're going to select them on the bench, respectively, I'm not quite sure. If they're going to go with a specialist loose head, I'm not sure it's going to be, to be honest. I mean, there's some conversation of Kunit Westhuizen who can also play both roles. Making a comeback for the Springboks, from Shell Sharks. So I think at replacement loose head prop, there might be a big debate as to who's going to take that number 17 jersey. But I do know number 18 is covered, in tight head prop, with Vincent Koch. At loose head is also Luisa Koboka of the Bulls. And I mentioned the other guys as well at tight head, Trevor Thomas, they can all cover those positions, even Kunit Westhuizen. So I think in that regard, they should be okay. And then to the replacement loose or the replacement lock for that matter, if Archie Snyman is fit to go, I think he might be the guy on the bench. Hopefully, I'm a big fan of him, to be honest. And then loose forward, interesting one again. Who's going to be replacement guy? Do you go for a line-out option, or do you go for someone who's playing a bit closer to the ball? But I do think Marcel Coetzee might be the guy to go with. He's fit and ready to go. Playing for the Bulls from the end of the month, as they predicted. Marcel Coetzee wearing the number 20 jersey. Replacement scrum half. I mean, look, Herschel Yankees playing in South Africa. The Stormers aren't doing that well at the moment, but his form hasn't been bad, to be honest. But on the other side of the coin, Kobus Reiner has been tearing it up, for Montpellier. And he's playing alongside André Pollard. So that might give him a bit of an advantage going into the test squad. So I think it's a bit of a two-horse race for the replacement scrum half jersey. And then you look towards your backline replacement. So you're probably going to go for a center in Franstein. I can cover like 3 positions basically.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll go 6-2 again in terms of the forward. They might go 5-3 this time around.
Yeah, you do. Sorry, I was going to get onto that. You don't think it'll be 6-2 like it was in the World Cup? Yeah,
I'm not quite. I don't think so, to be honest. I think maybe for the one test in Cape Town, where they don't play at altitude, but I think where they might go 5-3, it's a 2 test in Joburg because altitude also might have an effect on the Lions players that last 20 minutes.
Possibly. Yeah, very possibly.
And they might want to actually get a few guys to run him off the park a bit. So I think maybe for one of the 2 tests, or they might only have a 6-2 split, but that's just my opinion, obviously. But I think, if we go to have a normal sort of test squad, I think they'll go 5-3 with maybe a Franstein at the back. Kerwin Bosch, for flower replacement. There's, I'm not even sure, Jesse Kriel, playing in Japan as well. I think he's also a good cover for wing and for center. But then it's a bit redundant as well because you have 2 guys that can cover the same positions then. So, that's just basically my match to 23 for now. Like I said, it can go anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, form injuries come into play as well. But I mean, I want to talk about Marcel Coetzee because I think most of us, like around the Northern Hemisphere, when we see him play for Ulster, we hold him in high regard with his ability. But sadly, he seems to get injured an awful lot. Do you think he will manage to keep himself fit in time to be available for the tests?
Well, I hope so, to be honest. I know he had some bad luck with injuries. I was actually at the last test the Springbok played in South Africa where he got injured up in Pretoria. And that's how basically he couldn't make the World Cup squad, obviously, for the second time around. But you know, I hope that he stays fit, you know, because he's been prone to injury, especially with his knee. I'm not even sure how his knee still operates, to be honest. How he can actually still run, because he had so many knee reconstructions, you know, in the last couple of years. And he just seems to get going after that. He just seems to recover and just do what he does best. You know, I'm not sure if there's something special he drinks or eats, but you know, he's got that in him. So, you know, God willing, he actually stays fit and injury free and makes the Lions tour or makes the Lions series.
Yeah. I mean, because when I've seen him play, I've always thought he's a talent. Just a shame that injury seems to catch up with him sometimes. He's had a couple of bad ones from what I've seen. But just want to talk about what the general consensus is in South Africa with regards to the squad the Lions have picked. What do you think of the squad that Gatland's gone for overall?
I'll say it's a well-balanced squad, to be honest. Obviously, a few omissions, but I think not too surprised. I think the biggest surprise to me.
No, I was just going to say, don't think Alan Jones is an old pensioner who needs a wheelchair, as one of your journalists seems to be loving to stir the pot about.
You know, Carl, and I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, you know, because I'm an opposing freelance journalist from another company, but I feel every country has that one or two journalists that is just there for sensation. Now,
absolutely,
the guy that wrote that, I won't mention his name. We all know who he is, but the guy who wrote that was relevant at a point in time in his career. He's not anymore, and he writes the biggest load of rubbish these days. I wouldn't take what he says with a pinch of salt. I've mentioned to you earlier what I feel about players and their age. If you say can still perform, pick him. Whether he's 20 years old or 40 years old, if he can still perform at the highest level, why not? So Alan Jones, I mean, in terms of rugby CV, he's probably the best guy out there to do the job. And I actually absolutely don't see any reason why he shouldn't be the captain. Because he's got the resume, he's got the experience, he's got the calmness. I mean, look at his reaction when Joe Marler, you know, did what he did with him back in the day. Yes. He kept calm. Another guy would have lashed out probably, most likely. He kept calm and just said, listen, what the hell are you doing? You know, and that's the maturity Alan Jones has. And I think, you know, that's what you need from a captain, especially in a line series. You don't want a guy who's a hard hit who will go and punch and push guys. You want someone to stay calm in a situation where things might get a bit tense. And it will get a bit tense, you know, coming into those tense matches. So you need to leave a little captain. And that's why I think he's actually the best guy for the job. But yeah, I know what that certain journalist said, but I have to tell you, I don't agree with him, to be honest.
Fair enough. Again, we've got our journalists who've said their opinions on the squad Lions have picked, and certain players, especially being a Scotsman, you know, saying certain players from my country are either too small or too much of a liability, and I generally just think they're talking mostly a load of rubbish. So so I can definitely relate to you there. But sorry to interrupt you a bit. Like, what were you thinking, like, of the overall squad Lines of picks? They seem like well balanced. Where do you think they can cause problems for the Springboks when it goes into the Test series?
Louis Rees-Zammit. Look, we have Cheslin Colby. Great, absolutely great, but he's got that same as Colby, but I think Louis is a bit of an unknown factor still, you know, in South Africa. We haven't seen too much of him. I mean, we haven't played him at all. We played Josh Adams in the semi-final last year, so we know a bit how to kind of contain him. But I always say it's an unknown factor of players that you don't know. Bandi Aki, we played him in Super Rugby, a couple of guys, you know, we were still playing for the Chiefs back in the day. But also another unknown factor. But I don't think Bandi will be a guy that's necessarily starting, but maybe a guy off the bench or an injury cover guy. But you never know what Gatland has up his sleeve, you know. So
he loves his 12, so it's very possible he could be starting.
Yeah, look, I think maybe the focus obviously will be on the forward pack. So the Springboks are quite settled in that regard. I don't see any player causing them too much problems there. I do feel that, you know, a guy like Carl Sinclair being left out, they might have missed the trick, but I'm sure Gats has his reasons. And I always say, you know, when a coach makes a selection and the public is not happy with it, I understand why the public isn't happy, but also understand that coaches see things that we don't, because they have a first eye view of what they want in a player, what they need in a player. And if that certain player don't actually get to that criteria, well, then so be it. You can't select the guy that's not going to fulfill what he wants from him. I think it was our coach Jasi Rasmus. Yeah, he said that he doesn't necessarily pick the best 15 guys, the best 15 rugby players. He looks at those guys who actually does what he needs them to do.
Yeah.
And I think it was evident, in that World Cup squad. I mean, we probably had some better players out there that didn't get selected. But at the end of the day, the guys that were there did what he wanted them to do, and they did it, and they got the job done. So I think Gax was smart in his selection. I mean, he won the Alliance Tour in 2013. He drew one in 2017. There's not much you can actually dispute him on. I know the Chiefs in Super Rugby didn't do well last year, but be that as it may, he's still a damn good international coach, with Wales, and I wouldn't argue with the selections much in the regard, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm thinking fairly similar there. Obviously, I mean, I think there's always, from our end, there's always one or two names that are up for debate. There's a couple of players like, obviously, Courtney Law's being picked. You'll obviously know what a great player he can be, but the fact he's still injured just now and he's not really played since February. There's a lot of thinking, is he just being picked on reputation? And then Johnny Hill was a bit of a left field choice in the second row. He didn't play that well in the Six Nations for England, but he has been playing pretty well for Exeter Chiefs this season. And then the weekend before the line selection, he happened to kick a 60-foot monster up the pitch for a second row, which is damn impressive. And there was just something in the back of my mind that was kind of thinking, is he just going because Gatland's just seen, yeah, that guy. And then obviously there's other debates, Sam Simmons not getting a look in for Eddie Jones, but you'll know, I'm going to say you'll know a lot about him. Yeah, what do you think of players like that, like Sam Simmons and the other two eights that are going as well? They're all three more ball playing eights rather than like Billy Vunipola or CJ Stander, who are more, sort of like smash up the jumper eights. What do you think of Gatland's choices there?
Yeah, I actually think that they might have also missed the trick on not playing CJ Stander. I know he's going to retire at the end of the season, but being a South African-born player, he knows the conditions. I mean, he's played for the Bulls in Pretoria for years. 2 test matches going to be played up there, so they might have missed a bit of expertise in that regard. I mean, obviously he can interpret some of the Afrikaans calls that's being made, so he can just eavesdrop and just tell the guys, listen, you know what, this has been said. You can use these tactics maybe. But I think they missed the trick on not selecting CJ. You mentioned the Sam Simmons, obviously. Yeah, I think he's a good choice, to be honest. I mean, Eddie Jones, he's been performing week in and out for Exeter. And Eddie Jones just turned a blind eye. But we know Eddie is quite stubborn in his selection, so there's nothing new there, to be honest.
Yeah.
But on a dry South African field, Sam Simmons is a guy that can cause havoc, to any forward back. So I think that was actually a very, very smart trick that Gatland pulled there. And I think also Eddie Jones' eyes might open up now, especially if he performs in South Africa, that he might have missed the trick, not selecting England in the first place. But I think at the number 8, I think they're actually a bit more settled in the Lions, as we are in South Africa. But like I said to you earlier as well, we've had Dwayne Vermeulen. But when it comes to the second, third choice guys, I'm not quite sure who's going to step up in that number 8 jersey. So I think the Lions might have a bit of an edge there towards South Africans, coming to number 8.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as I was saying, with the 3-8 selected, they'll be offering a bit more variety. I think there'll be plenty of moments where we'll see. I'm expecting it to be Faletau still the test starter with maybe Simmons on the bench. But I think we will see whoever is playing number 8, they'll be popping up on the wing more often than, doing the crash up work down the middle. And it might be like a case we might see more stats where it's I'm expecting Henshaw again to be this first choice centre, whether it's a 12 or 13. We don't know yet, but I think we might see more stats of Henshaw doing the work where he gets the lines over the gain line, and then there's number 8s more doing the out wide work or sort of popping in, trying to do the offloads and get other players into play. That's the sort of things I'm expecting to see from the Lions a bit with this, because I think with South Africa, it's safe to say the style of rugby you guys will be playing is the attritional sort of smash them up front, sort of demoralize them and absolutely smash them back there. Play the rugby in the opposition's half. Have backs who are just going to happy to kick chase all day, and when they get the opportunity, whether it's off a counter attack or the play breaks up a bit, that can absolutely sort of tear it up and score almost at will. But that's the game we're expecting. I don't think that the Lions are going to be able to beat them playing them at their own game with the power game. I think, like as you'll know, with New Zealand in the past, they haven't beaten the Boks just by taking them on, like the pounding kind of rugby that South Africa like to play. They play with a lot of variety and sort of try and move the South African pack about a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, earlier, the altitude factor as well.
Oh yeah.
If they are going to pursue that game plan, they have to make sure they are fit to do so. I mean, 2 tests in Johannesburg, it's no easy feat, and the air is quite thin up there in Joburg. I mean, down here in Cape Town, it's fine. You can play that sort of game, but at altitude, it's not that easy. And I go back to 2018 when Rassie Erasmus took over. They played a test in Johannesburg, played a test in Bloemfontein, they played a test in Cape Town. Barring the changes made in Cape Town as well, because they changed the whole team that plays through the first 2 tests. We lost badly. I think we lost something like I think 28-9 against England in that last test. A rainy test. I think Danny Cipriani still started that one. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that at sea level, the Lions might have a bit more of a chance as opposed to at altitude. So if they want to play the running game, go for it, but they have to make sure it's a balanced game, not throw everything around, because if they're going to try and run the Springboks off their feet, they might get it right for a good 20, 30 odd minutes. But I think we'll be more conditioned to actually take them on, going into that last 40, 50 minutes of the test. So they have to be smart in that regard, on how they want to play, because I think one miscalculation might cost them, if they don't actually pitch up in the sense of preparing well, fitness-wise, because, up in Joburg, it can be an issue. I mean, England played South Africa in 2018, like I just mentioned. They were 24-3 ahead and lost test, I think something like 39-42. We made a comeback before the first half, and the second half, we just blew them off the park. And it was all altitude, except for the things coming together, the game plan coming together. The altitude helped. We ran them off their feet. So, it could be a thing of, can the lungs last, for that long? And I guess we'll have to see when it happens, when the guys come and play in Johannesburg.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. I think, as you say, with regards to altitude, and when I say obviously variety, even though I'm suggesting that, it's still bloody difficult to beat the Springboks, because you need at very least parity at the pack. You need at least a platform to play from. And as you're saying, if you do make a mistake or there's a loose pass of that, so that the South Africans are very capable of turning any team over with that, as they've historically shown. But yeah, one of the obviously the main talking point in terms of the backs for the Springboks, Mr. Cheslin Colby, being touted now as the best winger in the world. He's still going bloody well with Toulouse. I mean, he's helped them to, of course, a European final. What are your thoughts on him and how he's getting on, and how good is he going to be for this series, or how good and ready, I should say?
Yeah, I think he'll be the game breaker, to be honest. I covered the match, the semi-final he played. I think he stepped 2 or 3 guys in a matter of this amount of space. And he can still do it to anyone at any time. I think it was Brian who truthfully said that he's better than Shane Williams because he can step off both feet at any time. And I've seen, I'm saying this with all due respect, I've seen Cheslin grow up. And if I say grow up, I've seen him play Western Province under 19s, under 21s, Vodacom Cup. I mean, I support the Stormers, so I've always been at the games, where he's been playing.
Yeah.
And he's been playing like that all these years. But he's got so much better and so much more rounded playing with Toulouse than he's ever been. And I think he actually had a few weaknesses, on his defensive game and so forth. But now he's a guy that can actually do it all. He's good in the air. He's good on defense. He's brilliant on attack. And I don't think he can put a foot wrong, to be honest. So Cheslin Colby might be the guy that makes or breaks the series for the Springboks. And I think he'll make it more than break it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just watch him. I mean, the variety he has in his game as well. I mean, there was times when I was watching that semi-final to lose against Bordeaux, he was popping up in the centres. He was putting little kicks in behind. I know he's played 10 a few times for Toulouse as well. I mean, he just seems to be almost the complete rugby player. I mean, for a winger, just what he, as well as, his ability, obviously, to have that X factor, where he can just make or break a game, as you're saying. He has that ability just to have that all-roundedness to his game, as well as like his brain of knowing when to pop up and things. But what do you think of the prospect? I'm not saying this is going to be line selection on the left wing, but what do you think of the prospect of someone like Duhan van der Merwe going up against him?
Whew, it's going to be interesting for one. I do know if there's one thing about Duhan's game that's not as great is his defensive work.
Yeah, that's
so
fair to say.
that could be the issue. I mean, if you miss a tackle, you're going to lose the game. And to be fair, if he goes up against Cheslin Colby one-on-one, there's 9 out of 10 times it's going to be only one winner, and it's going to be Cheslin Colby. So, Duhan being a South African.
Sorry, Angus, I was just going to ask, what do you think of if Duhan has the ball though, and he's going up against Cheslin Colby?
Well, you make me think a bit now, to be honest. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Miguel. I wish I could answer you that one. Look, I haven't seen them play against each other before, so it's a bit of an open question, I suppose. But I think, Duhan's got the physicality, the power game to maybe bump off Cheslin Colby. But then again, the Springbok defensive system is so aligned to self-fake space. By the time he gets to Cheslin, there'll be 2 other guys to cover for him as well. So it might be interesting to see if there's a one-on-one situation who might come out on top. I think in a power situation, Duhan might overpower him, but Cheslin will slow him down. He wouldn't miss a tackle. He will slow him down, definitely. So I'll still give the nod to Cheslin Colby to contain him, to be honest. I'm not too worried about it, where Duhan has the ball. But I also would say in the same breath, I wouldn't be surprised if Duhan has an impact, playing against country of birth.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fair to say. But even if Duhan manages to overpower Colby and Colby slows him down, that's could open up space elsewhere if 2 or 3 tacklers need to take him down. Yeah, but also the thing is with Duhan, he has that ability as well, which I don't think that many people are talking about because they just see him as a winger. He has that ability to pop up in the center of the pitch, and he can be that guy who does get over the gain line, which as we know, Gatland loves his backs who sort of are going to get over the gain line at the first or second point of attack. He has that ability just to look for space in field and cause havoc there. So it's his defense, as you say, you're rightly to say, his defense still has a lot of question marks over it, mainly with his positional play, which is where if he gets it wrong against someone like Cheslin Colby, even by an inch, that would be a big problem. So that gets me thinking, if is Gatland going to start him there, he'd need to play very well in the warm-up games going into it. Same with all the players, of course, but I think especially him, if he's going to prove that he is in with a good contention of starting in that first test. Being Scottish, I'm a bit biased. I would start him, but sort of, I just think his ability as a try scorer and just how he gets around the pitch and he keeps defenders guessing. Is going to be a big factor in his favour when he has the ball, of course, or when the team have the ball, of course.
I have to ask you something quickly before we go on. As a Scotsman, how do you feel about having more than 2 guys in a line squad? For the first time in how many years?
Oh, it feels great. We've had 3 in 2013, 3 in 2009, 3 in so 2 is the. But yeah, it does feel really good and justified how well some of our boys have been playing, especially over the Six Nations. I'm still not sure about Ali Price, to be honest with you, as he's likely to be the 3rd choice 9, I think, because sometimes his game management at key times still needs a bit to be desired as far as I'm concerned. And Xander Fagerson, as good a rugby player as he can be, his discipline sometimes. I'm not just talking about the red card he got against Wales. I'm mainly talking about he's still sometimes in games where he gives away a penalty or 2. He doesn't just always have the mental ability just to brush it off and just say, okay, I give away a penalty, it doesn't matter. But because sometimes he goes on to give 4 or 5 penalties away and just sort of lose his head a little bit. So that's those 2 are my other only slight concerns. The rest of them, the other 6 that are going, I think are all there on merit and all deserve their spot. But that's another question I want to ask you, because I expect Dan Biggar to be the first choice 10 right now. But Finn Russell, I think, is someone who definitely could give the Boks a few problems at 10. What are your thoughts on Finn as a rugby player?
Great attacking player, but yeah, he can also be unlocked, if things get a bit loose. But he's one of those guys that you can either dominate him when things get loose, or he can dominate you.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
If things get a bit loose, which I probably think it will, especially like I said in the Joburg case, that last 20 minutes, Finn is a guy that can break open defenses, especially if there's a bit of a mismatch or anything like that, back against forward, like maybe he has to take on a hook or anything like that. So, it might be interesting what Finn can do, because I mean, he's one of those silent assassins, I would say. He's a player that people don't actually think of quickly. Think about the Lions player. They'll go Farrell, they go, like you just mentioned, Bigger and all those guys. But when it comes to Finn Russell, he just has that bit of unpredictability when things get a bit pear-shaped in terms of the opposition defense. So he might be also key to what the Gats want to do, and I think that's why he's selected in any case. So yeah, he might be a bit of a trump card for Gats, you can say.
Yeah, I think pardon me, I think Gregor Townsend being on the Lions coaching staff has played a bit of a factor in him going, I have to say. But no, I think the thing is with Finn is last couple of years, especially since he's gone to Racing, his all-round game has just improved so much. I mean, even when in the Six Nations, the match against France, I know he got a red card near the end, but in that game, like his tactical kicking and his ability just to put balls in behind and keep the French under pressure was just chalk and cheese. He just shows just how much he has improved over the past couple of years, and his overall game awareness. He's like not chucking passes for the sake of it as much anymore. Albeit it's brilliant when it does work, as it showed against England in 2018. Yeah, no, I think he's someone, as I say, I expect Bigger to be starting. I think he's someone, in the last 20 minutes you can bring off the bench and he'd keep the South Africans on their toes and under stress, because like this sort of unpredictability factor, as you say, you don't know what he's going to do entirely.
Yeah, look, you mentioned those guys. I'm just thinking now, are we talking about Farrell as a 12 and not a 10 at the moment? Do you think Farrell will play a dual sort of role, playing number 12 instead of number 10? So they're Bigger at 10, Farrell at 12, and then later on take Bigger off and bring Finn on and keep a dual playmaking role. Do you think that might be a thing for the Lions?
I think that's a possibility. My personal opinion, I wouldn't have taken Farrell on the tour at all, because apart from his goal kicking, I think he's been rubbish for England recently. So, he's one of those players, as the whole thing, talk of the credit in the bank. He's one of those players who's just there for that and his goal kicking, I think. So I expect him to start in the test, but I wouldn't start him right now, I'll have to say.
Yeah, Owen Farrell doesn't have a good reputation in South Africa, So when Jason Kobe did what he did to him in the World Cup final, for one, we were happy we won the final, but we were also happy that after what happened in 2018, when he shoulder charged Andre Esterhuizen, should have gotten the penalty at the end. I think we lost by a point.
Yes.
And he got away with it. I think that was just like sweet revenge for that moment what happened in 2018. And that following week, when England played the All Blacks, the whole South Africa was supporting the All Blacks to beat England because of what Owen Farrell did.
Yeah, well, can't say I blame you, to be honest. No, I still remember at the time the Rassie Erasmus teaching. What was the centre's name who sort of got
Andre Esterhuizen.
I remember him coaching him how to make the tackle. It's like, yeah, just go in with your shoulder first and just put your arm up afterwards. And he made a big. I mean, it's good he could have a laugh at it, but I can totally understand why you were all very frustrated and annoyed at that, because it should have been a penalty. That granted, we're going back a couple of years. It should have been a penalty, and he's a lucky boy. But you could also look at it from another angle. A few months ago, a bit before rugby, about the time rugby resumed, maybe just after, he got a red card for, similar, where he just shoulder charged someone near the face, and he still does it sometimes. As shown the Six Nations, I think It was right. I think it was when Duhan van der Merwe scored for Scotland against England. He basically went in with a attempted shoulder, but thankfully Duhan had made enough of an impact to get over and score the try that it didn't really make a difference. But yeah, I mean, you just think with that sort of tackling, he needs to buck up a bit, because I don't think, especially with the way all the authorities are going now and the way that how much scrutiny there is with the TMO, etc., he's not going to get away with that as much anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think what kind of bothers me is the fact that he hasn't done anything to change it. I mean, it's been going on for years now.
Yeah.
And as a coach, you would also want to say, listen, boy, you can't go on like this. We have to work in your tackling technique, because you're going to, one day you are going to not get away with it. And we might end up in the biggest trouble of our lives. And he still does it. He's done it recently as well, and got away with it again. So I'm not sure what his issue is, if he's doing it on purpose, because, wow, one tackling technique cannot be that bad and you don't actually work on it. The coaches don't address it. It's actually worrying, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And the thing is, I remember I just read some stuff about certain pundits in the media who talk about Scottish players he's a liability there, or he's too small there. I just think Owen Farrell's one of the biggest liabilities out there. If he just gets it wrong, as you say, if an incident like what happened 2 years ago, England, South Africa, if it happens in a Lions series, he's not going to get away with that again, because folk are just going to be more screwed into what is going on, and obviously the TMOs for such big games and test series, they're going to be a lot more switched on to pretty much everything that's going on. So yeah, I don't see him getting away with that as much in the series, if that makes sense. If he does it again.
And if you look back at 2017, Sonny Bill Williamson, I think it was the second test, you got a red card.
Yes.
It was very, not the same, but a very similar attack. And Sonny Bill Williams, probably one of the biggest players in the world. They showed him, listen, boy, you can't do that. Red card. The first All Black in 50 years get a red card, in the Lions won that game, I think 24-21.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is not going to be another test match. It's not going to be a friendly, it's not going to be an end of year tour sort of thing. It's going to be an actual Lions series. And if Farrell does it again, are they going to overlook it? I don't think so. I think they're going to punish him, and he might even sit out the rest of the tour due to suspension. So he is a liability. I have to agree with you, to be honest. Not my problem if he does it and he gets a red card. I'm happy with it, because we're going to be an advantage. So
yeah, no, I don't blame you, mate. But yeah, regards to talk a wee bit about maybe other Lions players. What do you think of, from a Scottish point of view, what do you think of Hamish Watson as a rugby player, as a 7? Too small, or a threat, or?
Too small has been a thing that Jason Colby's been called all his life. And in South Africa, we had guys like CJ Stander who's been called too small. He went to Ireland, obviously, and well, the rest is history. He's one of the best players in Europe at the moment. Size, my friend, has never been an issue to me personally. I don't see size as an issue for a player that can perform. If you can put in the hard yards, if you can do the graft. I mean, there's guys that are big, but they can't tackle properly, like Owen Farrell. They can't do the primary roles like they should do. So you might have a bigger guy, but he can't rush back, after he made a tackle in 2 seconds or whatever the case may be. And at the end of the day, what you want is effort from a guy, and a guy can actually do the job for you, like the way you want him to. And after that, what difference does his size make? If you can still smash a guy back twice his size, what's the issue? So Hamish Watson, no issues whatsoever. I think it's a brilliant player and deserves selection. I can't see an issue with his size, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, with he still carries. He breaks the game line 7 or 8 times out of 10 when he carries. He's got his footwork as well when he does carry. I think he could cause a lot of problems for you, especially your bigger players. If he's going down low, it could be very awkward to try and tackle properly. And he's just I think he's got almost the whole round package. And of course, he's very strong over the ball as well at the breakdown. So I mean, I'm maybe coming from a slightly biased place, but I just think, he's more or less God up north of the border. I just absolutely think he's a brilliant player. And I would definitely have him as my 7. But again, of course, like everyone, he's got to perform in the Test matches, and but I think he's got every shout right now. But yeah, is there anything else you think I wanted to talk about with regards to South Africa or anything?
Yeah, you touched on the loose forwards now, and I think especially the breakdown. I think that might be an area where the game could be won or lost as well. Because I mean, you look at guys who can play towards the ball. You mentioned Hamish now. We have Dwayne Vermeulen, we have Malcolm Marx, we have Bongi, we have Steven Kitsoff. They're not loose forwards, but I mean, guys who can actually play towards the ball at the breakdown. You know, Damon the Island at center can do it. Some of our wingers can do it as well. I mean, Chislankovic can do it. There's a lot of jacklers in our team. And if you have a guy that can slow down the opposition ball, I mean, that could disrupt your whole play and all your plans you wanted to do. I mean, quick ball is like like the nectar of a honeybee. You know, if you can get quick ball, you always guaranteed to go forward and either get a penalty for being offside or get over the gain line. So the breakdown could be crucial. You know? I mean, I look back at 2012 when England played the All Blacks. They won that game at the breakdown. They overpowered the All Blacks back in 2012 at the breakdown, and that's how they won that game. So, yeah, I think that will be the one area that could, you know, be the difference for either side. Because I do feel the Lions have very, very good back that was selected. You mentioned Sam Simmons, obviously. You mentioned now, what's his name? You just mentioned his name now, the other Lucy. Hamish, sorry, you mentioned him now. I mean, there's a great deal of loose forwards selected, you know, for the Lions. You know, I still feel they missed CJ Thunder, but I'm actually glad he's not playing because he would have caused us some trouble. But you know, be that as it may, I think the loose forward battle or the breakdown battle for that battle will be crucial, and it could be where the game could be decided at the end of the day or the series for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another player. I mean, we obviously mentioned two in there. I think another player could be key in that is Tag Byrne of Ireland. I think he, as well as being very strong on the ball, he offers that something a little bit different to the other loose forwards. He can play or second rows. He can play there as well. In that he's really strong at the choke tackle. He could really sort of. I think he showed that in the Six Nations just how sort of good he is at just holding players up enough in time for the teammates to get around and force the scrum. So he's another one, definitely. Curry, of course, as you'll know, another excellent player. I think has got a lot of ability. And two players I definitely have in the 23. Whether they'll be starting or not, I'm not sure yet. But that's other options at the back row, I think, could definitely prove difficult for the Boks, and what will no doubt be an absolutely sort of fantastic battle there. But I think you're right. It will be mostly won or lost at the breakdown, and it could be I think actually all three games are going to be pretty close. There's going to be one or two scores or one moment of brilliance, one moment of madness is going to separate them. What do you think there?
Yeah, I think you're quite right in that regard as well. And we actually failed to touch on one thing, and that is the thing that won the Boks the World Cup, the scrum.
Yeah.
I mean, that old Springbok starting front row, not the starting ones, but that Springbok starting front row that's going to play, most likely. I mean, two of those guys started and one was on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many guys. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Vincent Koch of Saracens in this conversation, and he's also an option, playing at tight end. So do you think that the Lions have the pack, and especially the front row to actually contain the Boks? What do you think about that?
I think Tag Furlong is definitely showing he's one of the best tight heads in the world right now, and if you can get him up to peak level, he's capable of, at the very least, holding his own against any front row, I think. I expect Wyn Jones to be the starting loose head prop. Is scrummaging sometimes I still can be a little bit so I think that's one area like the Boks could. I mean, I know they'll be targeting the scrums anyway because it's just what you do. But no, I think Furlow certainly has it in him. I'd say actually Rory Sutherland. I know he's injured just now. He's going, but if you can get him back to full fitness and up to peak, he's shown in the last 18 months or so, his ability as a scrummager. He can hold his own against pretty much anyone. So I think it's an area of the Lions. I don't think they can out-muscle the Springboks there. I don't think they'll be wanting to get into too much of an arm wrestle up there. But I mean, at the very least, I think they can get parity and just not let the Boks bully them too much there. And again, probably give away 1 or 2 scrum penalties, but as long as it doesn't go on a roll like that World Cup final where the Boks got 1 or 2 penalties, then it just built up, and they just kept pushing England back and back. And then England just didn't have an answer for them at all. I mean, as long as like the Lions can at the very least get parity and not let the Boks bully them, they've got absolutely every chance, I'd say, in that department of maybe causing a few problems themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be a really tough challenge.
If you look back to the last series, the Lions played against the All Blacks in New Zealand, they managed to not overpower New Zealand, but actually just match them in the pack, and it sort of drew things level for them in that regard. And they defended very well, the Lions. So that could also be a thing where the Boks have a defensive system where they sell the fake space on the outside. So you think there's space, and you just see guys coming across, and there is nowhere to attack. So I think it's something Gats will definitely look at, because it is a system that can be unlocked with good kicks over the top. So our back three's positional play will have to be spot on to contain that, if that's going to be the thing, because the way the Boks play or the way the Boks defend, they tend to leave space at the back. And I think that's the one thing the teams haven't unlocked as of yet. And Gats, if he's a smart man, will see that and look to counter in that regard as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, very possible. I mean, I do expect us to see a fair bit of kicking in the series. I'm hoping it's not that kind of ping pong back and forth rubbish. We don't like seeing it. If there is kicking, I want to see from both teams like actually playing with purpose, like they're going for positional, or they're going to like put it in behind, or even like an up and under to get. I expect a lot of that from South Africa, especially a lot of Pollard or whoever's playing tend to put a few high balls up to sort of really put pressure on the Lions behind the defensive line, and then disrupt and try and cause problems there. But yeah, again, I'm hoping if there is kicking, it is done with some purpose and some excitement, because I don't like this ping pong rubbish we've been seeing like lately from certainly from a team coached by Eddie Jones right now. So
look, I used to be a guy that wasn't, but actually hated, like you said, the whole ping pong thing. But I sort of got to understand why they do it. It's not the most attractive thing, but I think at test level, if you want to win a certain way, I'm not sure if you watch Chasing the Sun, you played against Wales. The whole tactic was not to succumb to the tactics of trying to run a ball that's supposed to be kicked. And although it looked boring, it won us a semi-final. And I think no one will care what game you played if you win the series. So yeah, but I do get it, from an entertainment point of view. You don't want to see balls going up back and forth all the time, hoping for the odd mistake to capitalize for the opposition team. So yeah, I mean, always a lot of excitement in those games as well. And I'm sure there will be, with the players selected for the Lions, the guys that Africa has, I'm sure we set up for a cracking series, my friend. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, fingers crossed it will be. I think to finish off, what would I expect? Maybe we both have a bias here, but we'll see. What is your tip for the series? Who's going to win it, and by how many tests?
I'm going to be biased here, definitely. But I don't think it's going to be a clean sweep for the Boks. I mentioned earlier the Joburg test and the Cape Town test. I do think that the Lions might lose the first one up in Joburg and then win the second one in Cape Town. And that might set up a mouth-watering decider back in Joburg again, where the Springboks might edge the Lions and actually win the series 2-1. That's sort of my sort of crystal ball view at the whole situation. How does yours look, bro?
No, that's fair enough, mate. I'm at the moment, I'm still saying just towards the Boks, but I think all 3 games, as I said earlier, are going to be won or lost by either a mistake or a moment of brilliance, or a penalty, mate, or a drop goal. Even I think they're all 3 of them are going to be very close, and I think it will be at the moment 2-1 to the Boks, but I think it will again. I think it is going to be very close, and and I think it will come down to that third test as to last 20 minutes or so. I expect the last 20 minutes or so to be close, and the Boks trying to just pound the Lions back, and it'd be a lot down to if the Lions can hold out enough and be smart enough, both with and without the ball, and then sort of who knows, we could see it could be a cracking finale. But I think we've covered quite a lot here, Angus. So I think we'll call it wraps there. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Much appreciated. Obviously, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you later on.